BC, a curious Greek man traveled the entire ancient world. He wasn't a warrior or a king. He was something even rarer in the ancient world, a storyteller. He traveled for 8 years visiting the world's most important cities, experiencing countless adventures along the way. His name was Herodotus, and in this video, we're going to be exploring the stories and writings from his travels in ancient Greece, the Persian Empire, ancient Egypt, Babylon, Ethiopia, India, Arabia, Scythia, and Libya. His travels began in ancient Egypt, where he writes about visiting the Pyramids of Giza and the translated conversations he had with ancient Egyptian priests describing the construction of the magnificent ancient wonder. After his travels, Herodotus composed all of his writings into one extraordinary book, the Histories, one of mankind's greatest literary achievements not lost to translation or time. Presenting it to the Athenian assembly, its greatness was immediately recognized. For his efforts, Herodotus was awarded 250 kilograms of gold. But long before he'd be known as the father of history, Herodotus was just a curious young boy, born in the Greek city of Halicarnassus. Herodotus was born in 484 BC to a wealthy, educated family at a time when Halicarnassus was under Persian rule and occupation. Now, Herodotus could have chosen a docile life. He was rich and educated at a time when luck was in very short supply. He was born at a time when the Greco-Persian War was at its fever pitch. When he was just 5 years old, his people defeated the Persians at the Battle of Plataea in a decisive victory. Herodotus wanted to know why. Why was there so much conflict between the Greeks and non-Greek? Could he, Herodotus, trace these wars to their very beginning? And could he do that from the comfort of his hometown, Halicarnassus? Of course not. So, Herodotus stepped out, away from Halicarnassus and into the world. First to Susa, then to Babylon. Why is there so much conflict between the Greeks and non-Greeks? When Herodotus journeyed to Susa, the winter capital of the Achaemenid Empire, he met Persians there and asked them this question. In response, they traced the conflict back to the Phoenicians, to a time before the Trojan War. According to the Persians, the Phoenicians came to Argos, a precursor to ancient Greece, for trade. But in the process, they kidnapped Io, the king's daughter. They took Io and sailed to Egypt. This, according to them, was the original sin. So at a later time, the Greeks returned the favor by landing in Tyre on the Phoenician coast and kidnapping Europa, the daughter of the Phoenician king. This was an act of retaliation. Now you could say they were level. But the Greeks would commit another act of revenge when they manned a warship, sailed to Colchis, and kidnapped Medea, the daughter of the king of the land. Colchis was not Phoenician, but they were non-Greek, and that was all that mattered. So when the king of the land sent a messenger to Greece demanding both the return of his daughter and reparations for the wrong done to him and his people, the Greeks basically told him to leave while reminding him of the original crime the Phoenicians had committed. According to the Persians, the tally stood 2-1 in favor of the Greek. It was unfair, but it would take another generation for the non-Greeks to level the scoreline. Their revenge came from Paris, son of Priam, when he stole Helen from Greece. The Greek were furious, and they asked for reparations and Helen back. But Paris reminded them of the incident with Medea and asked them if it would be fair to return Helen when they refused the offer from a generation before. After this, the Greek raised a mighty army that sparked the Trojan War, killed Priam, his son Paris, and destroyed the city. This, the Persians said, was the reason why they regarded the Greeks as enemies. This was the root cause of the war. Now, if this were any other historian, the story would end here. But Herodotus set himself apart from other historians of his time and before by always asking why. This is how Herodotus discovered that the Phoenicians did not agree with the Persians' version of events. In fact, the Phoenicians believed that the women they supposedly kidnapped came willingly. To them, the original sin with Io wasn't a sin because she had slept with their captain, gotten pregnant, and eloped with them so the whole affair wouldn't be discovered at home. But even this account wasn't enough for Herodotus. He wasn't convinced, so he proposed an alternate theory set in a time more recent to his. It was another explanation for the root cause of the hostilities. According to Herodotus, Croesus, king of Lydia, was the first non-Greek to encroach on Greek freedom. Croesus was the last king of the Mernad dynasty, the ruler of the ancient kingdom of Lydia from 585 BC to 546 BC. At the peak of his reign, he was considered by many to be the richest man on earth. But before Herodotus told the story of Croesus, he spoke of a predecessor, a king named Canalus, whose reign preceded Croesus by generations, and whose downfall was directly connected to Croesus's eventual downfall. Canalus reigned over the kingdom of Lydia more than 100 years before Croesus, and he was the last king of the Heraclid dynasty. Canalus had a guard named Gyges, whom he loved and trusted so much that he discussed everything with him, including deeply sensitive matters. But the love of a king is like fire. Enough of it will keep you warm, too much of it, and you'll find yourself consumed by its flames. Gyges found himself in front of those flames when Canalus insisted on proving to Gyges how beautiful his wife, the queen, was. And by proof, Canalus meant he wanted Gyges to watch the queen naked. This was an abomination by any stretch of the imagination, and as Herodotus pointed out, in Lydia, in fact, more or less throughout the non-Greek world, it is a source of great shame even for a man to be seen naked. So it was no surprise that Gyges was against this. He wanted none of it. In fact, he begged the king not to make him do it. But Candalus was his king, and kings get what kings want. However, Candalus assured Gyges that no harm would come to him for seeing the queen's nudity. So at night, when the queen was undressing before her king in their bedroom, Gyges watched from a hidden spot. Unfortunately for him, the queen noticed. The very next morning, she summoned Gyges and gave him two options. Either you can kill Candalus and have me and the kingdom of Lydia for your own, or you must kill yourself right now. Either the one whose idea this was, or the one who saw me naked when he had no right to do so. Caught between the devil and the deep sea, Gyges, like he had before, chose the devil. He chose himself. He chose to live. Gyges killed Candalus and had the queen and kingdom of Lydia all to himself, ending the Heraclid dynasty and installing his Mernad dynasty. But in these stories told to Herodotus, actions have consequences. And for Gyges, even though we could argue it wasn't his fault